Welcome to my channel. Imagine standing in front of someone who speaks English, and your heart starts to beat fast. You know some words, but you don't know how to put them together. You listen, but the sentences feel too quick. You want to answer, but your mouth feels heavy. Have you ever felt this way? Comment below if you know this feeling. Today I will show you how people really talk in English and how you can talk too. Stay with me because what I share will change the way you see English forever. My name is John. I am a student of English. I live in Spain. I always dreamed of speaking English, but for many years I was afraid. I only knew a few words. I could say hello. I could say thank you. I could ask for water in a restaurant. But inside my heart, I wanted more. I wanted to have real conversations. I wanted to understand people when they spoke fast. I wanted to travel to other countries. I wanted to work in a good company. I wanted to watch films and read books in English. I wanted to think in English and live in English. This was my big dream. But I did not know how to start. One day I made a decision. I walked to a small school in my town. The school taught English. I opened the door. I felt nervous but also excited. Inside the room, I saw my teacher for the first time. Her name was Sarah. She was from England. She smiled at me. Her smile was warm. It made me feel safe. She spoke slowly and kindly. She said, "Welcome." I sat down and looked around. There were 5 other students in the class. They were from Italy, Poland, Brazil, China, and Turkey. We were all different, but we had the same goal. We wanted to learn English. On the first day, something beautiful happened. Our teacher said a sentence that changed me. She said, "English is not just a language. English is a bridge." I wrote this in my notebook. I did not forget it. A bridge connects 2 sides of a river. English connects people from different countries. That idea gave me hope. Then she asked each student a question. She said, "Why do you want to learn English?" The girl from Brazil said, "I want to travel to the United States." The man from Turkey said, "I want to get a job in an international company." The woman from China said, "I want to watch English movies and understand them." When it was my turn, I said, "I want to speak with people from other countries." The teacher nodded. She said, "These are all good reasons. English is everywhere. At the airport, in hotels, on the internet, in meetings, in shops, on TV. English is the language of the world." I thought about this. She was right. Even before I knew English well, I saw English words around me. On websites, on my phone, on signs in the city, English was part of my life already. That day, she told us something very important. She said, "In this class, we will not only study grammar. We will not only write lists of words, we will speak. We will listen. We will ask questions. We will answer them. This is how people learn to talk in English. When I heard this, I felt happy. In my old school, we only studied rules. We memorized words for tests, but I forgot them quickly. Now I wanted something real. I wanted to speak English today, not after many years. We played a simple game in class. We sat in a circle. Each person said their name, where they were from, and one question. What is your favorite food? What do you do on weekends? Do you like music? These were small questions, but they helped me talk. I listened to my classmates. I understood some words. I learned new words. I spoke a little. I felt nervous, but also proud. For the first time, English was not only in a book. English was in my mouth. It was in my ears. After the class, I went to a cafe near the school. I ordered a coffee. At the next table, I heard two tourists speaking in English. They asked the waiter for coffee and tea. They spoke slowly. I understood a few words. I smiled. My heart felt light. For the first time in my life, I understood English outside the classroom. I felt something powerful. I felt that my dream was possible. That evening, I opened YouTube. I watched a travel video in English. I understood some sentences, not everything, but enough to feel happy. I said to myself, I am learning. I am moving forward. The next day, I went to class again. I spoke more. I made mistakes. But my teacher told me something very important. She said, when you make mistakes, you learn. Do not be afraid. Her words gave me courage. Every day after that, I practiced a little more. I talked with my classmates about travel, jobs, and hobbies. I spoke slowly, but I spoke. I used English. I made progress. One day after school, I saw a man with a backpack on the street. He looked lost. I asked him in English, "Do you need help?" He looked at me and smiled. He said, "Yes, thank you." "I am looking for the train station." I told him the way. We spoke for 2 minutes. He was from Canada. He said, "Thank you." I smiled back. My heart was full. I had helped someone in English. That night, I wrote in my notebook, English is not just a subject. English is a key. It opens doors to the world. It helps me connect with people. From that moment, I knew that English was not just for school. English was for life. And when you learn English, you do not just learn words. You learn to talk to the world. You learn to connect with people. You learn to grow. The next day, I walked into class again with a big smile. I was starting to love this place. Every time I sat in that room, I felt like something new was possible for me. My teacher looked at us and asked if we had any questions. A girl raised her hand. Her name was Anna. She was from Poland. She looked a little nervous, but brave enough to ask. She said, "I want to learn more words." What is the best way to learn many English words? When she asked that question, I felt something inside me too. I also wanted the same answer. I wanted to have more words in my mouth, more words in my head. Without words, how can I talk? Without words, how can I understand? I waited for the teacher's answer with hope. The teacher smiled. She walked to the board. She picked up a marker and wrote one big word: reading. She looked at us and said, "Reading is the best way to learn words. If you read every day, you will see the same words again and again. You will see them in real sentences. You will understand how people use them, and your brain will remember them." At first, I was not sure reading in English. I had only ever read in Spanish. English books looked difficult to me. I thought I would not understand. But the teacher explained more. She said, "You do not need to read big books. You do not need to read difficult books. Choose something easy. Choose a story you can enjoy. If you know almost all the words, maybe 95%, then you will enjoy it. You will not feel lost. And the small new words you see will stay in your brain." She told us one more secret. She said, "When you see a new word, do not stop. Do not try to study it. Do not write a big list. Just look at it quickly in a dictionary and keep reading, because when you see that same word again and again in different places, your brain will remember it naturally." This was very different from my old school in Spain. The teacher gave us long lists of words to study. We had to memorize them for a test. I studied hard. I passed the test. But 2 weeks later, I forgot most of the words. They disappeared from my memory because I never used them. Now, I felt excited. Maybe this new way was better. Maybe reading would give me words I could actually use. The teacher gave us a short story that day. It was about a girl who traveled to a big city. The sentences were simple. I started to read. I could understand most of it. Then I saw one new word. It was station. I did not know what it meant. I quickly checked my dictionary. It said a place for trains or buses. I smiled. I continued reading. I saw the word again and then again. Very soon I remembered it. I did not even try. It just stayed in my head. At the end of the story, I felt proud. I had learned 5 new words without stress. I did not write them. I did not repeat them 10 times, but I knew them now. I could feel them in my brain. After class, I walked to the library. I asked the librarian if there were more easy English books. She showed me a small section. I took 2 books home. One was a short story. The other was about famous places in London. That afternoon, I had to go to the job center. I wanted to find part-time work. I entered the building. A woman at the front desk said, "Hello, how can I help you?" I answered in English. I said, "I want to find a job. I am a student. I can work in the afternoon." She asked me some questions. I understood her. She gave me details about 2 jobs. One was in a cafe, the other was in a hotel. I read the papers she gave me, and I understood most of the words. I felt something strong in that moment. Just a week ago, I could not do this. But now I was speaking, I was listening, I was reading, I was understanding. Reading in class had already helped me in real life. I chose the cafe job. I was going to start on Thursday. My heart was full of excitement. I was not only going to work, I was also going to learn more English while working. In the evening, I opened one of the new books I borrowed. It was easy. I did not stop at every new word. I read and enjoyed the story. I remembered what my teacher said. Read every day. Do not stop. Do not write. Just enjoy. I kept this in my head like a rule. At the end of the day, I wrote one line in my notebook. When I read, I learn words. When I learn words, I understand people. When I understand people, I can speak. That sentence made me feel powerful. I felt like I had discovered a secret. I knew now that reading every day could change my life. It could give me the words I needed to talk to the world. The following morning, I woke up with a light feeling in my heart. I knew something good was waiting for me in class. Every day now felt like a new step on a long and exciting road. When I entered the classroom, I noticed one student sitting very quietly. His name was Arjun. He was from South Korea. He listened carefully in every lesson, but he hardly spoke. That day, our teacher looked at him with her kind smile and asked, "Arjun, do you have a question today?" For a moment, he looked down at his desk. Then he lifted his head slowly and spoke in a soft voice. He said, "Yes, I want to speak better. I want people to understand me. I know the words, but when I say them, they do not understand. My pronunciation is not good." The room went silent. We all understood his pain. I also felt the same many times. I wanted to say something, but people asked me to repeat. It made me feel small, like my voice did not matter. I could see that same feeling in Arjun's eyes. But our teacher nodded calmly. She said, "That is a very good question. Many students have the same problem. You are not alone." Her words were like a hand reaching out to him. She turned to the board and wrote a new word. She wrote shadowing. She explained, "This is a powerful way to improve your pronunciation. It is simple. You listen to a native speaker and you repeat exactly what they say right after they say it. You follow their voice like a shadow follows a person." I had never heard this word before, but it caught my attention. She explained how our mouth needs to learn new movements. Our tongue, our lips, and our jaw are used to our own language. That is why English sounds feel strange. Shadowing is a way to train the mouth and make the sounds natural. She opened her laptop and played a short video. A man spoke slowly and clearly. He said, "Good morning. I am very happy to be here." The teacher paused the video. She said, "Now you say it with him. Listen, then speak." We all repeated together. At first it felt funny, I was not used to moving my mouth like that, but after a few times, it started to feel easier. The teacher reminded us, do not worry about sounding perfect. Just try to sound clear. Every time you shadow, you get better. We tried another sentence. Today is a beautiful day. We said it again and again. Each time it felt smoother. I looked at Arjun for the first time. I saw him smile. He was speaking. He sounded better. He felt proud. And we all clapped for him. That moment filled the room with energy. I felt it in my chest, too. If Arjun could improve, then I could improve. We all could. After school, I wanted to test myself. At the reception desk, I asked the lady if there were any sports I could join. She said there was football practice at 5 o'clock. I went there in the evening. There were students from Japan, Brazil, Russia, Spain, and Italy. We were all different, but we spoke English to each other. During the game, I shouted simple sentences. Pass the ball. Nice shot. Good job. These were small phrases, but they gave me confidence. I was speaking without fear. I was part of the team. After the game, we sat together and talked about football in school. We laughed. We shared stories. I listened carefully and tried to speak clearly. It felt amazing. I was not just learning English now. I was living in English. That night when I went home, I opened my phone and played a short video. I shadowed the sentences again. I listened and spoke. I listened and spoke. Each time I felt my mouth moving in a new way. I wrote in my notebook, if you want to speak well, speak every day. Shadow the sounds. Enjoy the journey. In that moment, I realized pronunciation was not about perfection. It was about practice. It was about listening, repeating, and enjoying the process. Every time I spoke, I was closer to the person I wanted to become. The next day, when I arrived at class, I felt a little tired because I had worked at the cafe the night before. But even when I was tired, I still felt happy because every lesson gave me something new. The teacher walked into the room with her usual smile. She said, "Today we will talk about listening." At that moment, one student raised her hand. Her name was Sophia. She was from Brazil. She looked a bit frustrated and said, "I watch English movies, but I don't understand much. People speak too fast. What can I do?" When I heard her words, I felt the same inside. I had also tried to watch English videos, but the speed was too much for me. The sentences came like waves in the ocean, one after another, and I felt lost. Sometimes I even wanted to give up, but I listened carefully to what the teacher would say, hoping she had a solution. The teacher nodded gently. She said, "Listening is difficult in the beginning, but I will tell you a method that really works." She turned to the board and wrote, "Listen every day." Then she said, "Listening is like brushing your teeth or eating food. You must do it every day. If you listen every day, your ears will get stronger. Your brain will get faster. You will begin to understand more and more. She then wrote another sentence. Listen to easy audio. She explained, if the audio is too fast or too difficult, you will feel tired. You will want to stop. So, you must choose something easy. Choose something you enjoy. When you enjoy the audio, you will listen longer. And when you listen longer, you will learn more. A student asked, "How many times should we listen?" The teacher smiled. That is the secret. You must listen many times. Not once, not twice, maybe 5 times, maybe 10 times. Each time you listen, you hear something new. Your brain starts to catch the words. You understand more with every repeat. She played a short audio on her phone. A man spoke slowly. "My name is John. I live in London. I work in a bank." We all listened. Then she played it again. She asked us, "Did you hear something new this time?" Some of us nodded. One student said, "Yes, I did not hear I work in a bank the first time, but now I heard it." The teacher clapped her hands softly and said, "Exactly. This is why you listen again and again. Your brain learns without you even noticing. That is the magic of listening." She showed us how to use subtitles. She played a video with subtitles in English. She said, "First watch with subtitles, then watch again without subtitles, then try to say the words with the video. This way you practice listening and speaking together." Her method was simple, but it felt powerful. I decided I would try it that same evening. Later that day, I went to work at the cafe. I cleaned tables and helped with drinks. A man came to the counter. He said, "Hi, can I get a hot chocolate and a muffin, please?" I listened. I understood him. I smiled and said, "Yes, of course." "Anything else?" He said, "No, that's all." I gave him the muffin and the drink. I told him the price. He paid and said, "Thank you very much." I answered, "You're welcome. Have a nice day." It was a short conversation, but it filled my heart with joy. Just 1 week ago, I would not have understood everything. Now I did. Now I could answer with confidence. When I walked home after work, I felt proud. I felt like English was slowly becoming part of my life. That night, I sat at my desk and searched for easy English news on my laptop. I found a 2-minute video. I watched it with subtitles. I understood most of it. Then I watched again without subtitles. The second time, I understood more. I watched it 3 more times. By the end, I understood almost everything. I even repeated some sentences with the speaker. It felt fun, like a game. Before I went to sleep, I wrote in my notebook, "Listen every day. Listen to easy audio. Repeat many times. Use subtitles. Speak with the video. This is how I will understand more." When I closed my notebook, I felt peaceful. I knew that if I listened every day, my English would keep growing, just like a tree that becomes taller when it gets water every day. The more I listened, the more I wanted to speak. Listening gave me confidence, but inside my heart, I knew the next step was to open my mouth more often. Sometimes I felt nervous. I thought, what if I make mistakes? What if people laugh? What if I forget the words? These thoughts came again and again, but then I remembered what my teacher said. When you make a mistake, you learn. Do not be afraid. Her words stayed in my mind like a small light guiding me every time I felt shy. One afternoon after class, I walked to the park. The sun was shining and children were playing. I sat on a bench and opened a book. Next to me, I heard two tourists speaking in English. For a moment, I felt the same fear rise in my chest. But then I smiled to myself. This was a chance. I turned to them and said softly, "Excuse me, do you like this park?" They looked at me and smiled. One of them said, "Yes, it is beautiful." My heart jumped with happiness. I had started a real conversation. It was only a few words, but it felt like climbing a mountain and reaching the top. The next day in class, our teacher gave us another exercise. She said, "Today we will practice small conversations, real conversations, not perfect grammar, not long answers, just simple and natural." She made us stand in pairs. We had to ask each other questions. What do you like to eat? Do you have brothers or sisters? What is your favorite color? At first, I laughed a little. It felt like a game. But very quickly, I realized something important. These small questions were the questions people ask every day. These small answers were the way people talk in real life. I did not need big words. I only needed simple words and a brave heart. When the class ended, I felt lighter. I was no longer waiting for the perfect moment to speak. I was ready to use every small chance. That evening at the cafe where I worked, I tried to speak more with the customers. One lady asked me for coffee. I smiled and said, "How is your day?" She looked surprised but happy. She answered, "My day is good. Thank you." We smiled at each other. That small moment made me feel like English was now part of my daily life. Later that week, I tried another exercise my teacher suggested. She told us to speak to ourselves in English. At first, it felt strange, but I stood in front of the mirror and said, "Hello, my name is John. I am learning English today. I am happy." I watched myself say the words. I saw my mouth move. I saw my smile. I heard my own voice in English, and suddenly it did not feel strange anymore. It felt powerful. I was practicing with myself, but I was also training for the world. Slowly, I noticed a big change. Every day I spoke, my confidence grew. Every time I made a mistake and continued, I felt stronger. People did not laugh. People did not judge me. They listened. They understood me. Even when my words were not perfect, this gave me hope. I started to believe that speaking English is not about being perfect. It is about being brave. At night, when I lay in bed, I thought about my journey. A few weeks ago, I was afraid to speak. Now I was starting conversations. Now I was asking questions. Now I was talking to myself in the mirror and feeling good. I wrote one more line in my notebook. If you want to speak English, speak now. Do not wait for tomorrow. Do not wait to be perfect. Speak today, even with small words. Small words grow into big confidence. When I closed my notebook, I smiled. I felt that English was not just a dream anymore. It was becoming my reality, step by step, word by word. With every brave moment I chose to speak. Every morning started to feel different now. Before, I used to wake up and think about my day in Spanish. But slowly I began to add small pieces of English into my mornings. When I brushed my teeth, I looked in the mirror and said, "Good morning, John." When I made breakfast, I said the names of the food in English. Eggs, bread, coffee. These were small things, but they made me feel like English was living with me. At school, our teacher reminded us again, English is not something you learn only in class. English is something you live every day. I carried these words with me everywhere. At the bus stop, I tried to think in English. On the street, I read the English words on signs and repeated them quietly. Even when I used my phone, I changed the settings to English. Every time I unlocked the screen, I saw English words. At first it felt strange, but soon it became normal. Working at the cafe also became a classroom for me. Every time a customer came, I practiced. What would you like? Here you go. Have a nice day. These small sentences made me stronger. The more I repeated them, the easier they became. One evening, a customer asked me, "Where are you from?" I answered without thinking too much. I said, "I am from Spain. I am learning English." The man smiled and said, "Your English is good." That simple compliment filled me with joy. It gave me courage to keep going. At home, I started a small routine. Before sleeping, I opened an easy English book. I read for 20 minutes. I did not try to understand every word. I just enjoyed the story. When I found a new word, I looked at it quickly and kept reading. I trusted that my brain would remember it later, and it worked. Some of those words appeared again the next day at work or on TV, and suddenly they felt familiar. I smiled every time it happened. The most powerful change came when I began to believe in myself. Before, I always thought English was too big for me, too hard, too fast. But now every small success became proof that I could do it. Understanding a sentence in a movie, helping a customer, reading a short story, or even talking to myself in the mirror. All these things were victories, and when I collected them one by one, I started to feel unstoppable. I also realized that mistakes were not my enemy. They were my friends. Every time I made a mistake, I learned something new. One day at the cafe, I told a customer, "You are welcome," before he even said thank you. We both laughed. It was funny, but I remembered it. Next time, I waited for thank you first. That little mistake became a lesson, and the laughter made it sweet instead of painful. At night, I often thought about my dream. I wanted to travel to other countries. I wanted to work in a place where English was important. I wanted to watch movies and understand them without subtitles. These dreams felt closer now. They were no longer far away. They were waiting for me, step by step. As I continued to practice, I wrote another line in my notebook. English is not only words, it is courage, it is practice, it is life. Every time I opened my notebook and read these sentences, I felt stronger. I felt that English was not something outside of me anymore. It was growing inside me, like a seed turning into a tree. Day by day, my confidence began to grow. At first, it was only in small moments, but those small moments started to become bigger. I noticed that when I listened carefully, I could understand more than before. When people spoke slowly, I caught many of their words. Even when they spoke quickly, I could still understand the main idea. That gave me hope. I told myself, if I can understand the main idea today, tomorrow I will understand even more. One afternoon after work, I was walking home. Two tourists stopped near me. They looked at a map, confused. I felt my heart beat faster. This was another chance. I walked up to them and asked, "Do you need help?" They looked at me with relief and said, "Yes, thank you." "Do you know where the museum is?" I explained to them as best as I could. My sentences were not perfect, but they understood me. They smiled and said, "Thank you very much." I walked away feeling light, almost like I was flying. That feeling stayed with me the whole evening. The next day in class, our teacher gave us another activity. She said, "Today we will practice conversations, real conversations that you can use outside." She wrote simple questions on the board. Where are you from? What do you do? Do you like this city? We walked around the class and practiced asking and answering. At first, it felt like a game, but very soon it felt real. I could imagine myself asking these questions in the cafe or on the street. I felt prepared. When I went to work later that week, I tried to use one of those questions with a customer. I gave him his coffee and then asked, "Do you like this city?" He looked surprised but happy. He said, "Yes, I like it very much." It is beautiful. That moment gave me so much joy. It was short, it was simple, but it was real English in real life. I felt proud of myself because I had created a conversation. At home, I kept building small habits. When I cooked dinner, I said the names of the vegetables in English. When I washed the dishes, I described what I was doing in English. I wash the plate. I clean the glass. I dry the spoon. It may have sounded silly, but it helped me. I was training my brain to think in English, even during small daily tasks. Little by little, English started to feel natural. There were still moments of doubt. Sometimes I forgot words. Sometimes I spoke too slowly. Sometimes I did not understand a full sentence. But I stopped feeling ashamed. I told myself, this is part of the journey. Every mistake is a step forward. Every slow sentence is better than silence. Every time I try, I win. This new way of thinking made me stronger. I started to enjoy the process itself. I no longer thought, when will I be fluent? Instead, I thought, today I spoke more than yesterday. I began to celebrate small victories, understanding a sentence in a movie, remembering a new word at work, having a short talk with a stranger. Each one became a reason to smile. My happiness was not waiting for the future. It was here in every step I took. Before sleeping, I sat with my notebook. I wrote down one sentence. Confidence comes from action. I repeated it softly to myself. I knew it was true. The more I acted, the more I spoke, the more confident I became. English was no longer something far away. It was part of me now. It was in my thoughts, in my voice, in my daily life. And I knew with every new day it would grow stronger. As the weeks passed, I realized something important. My mistakes were not stopping me. In fact, they were teaching me. At first, I used to feel embarrassed every time I said something wrong. I worried that people would laugh at me or think I was not smart. But slowly, I discovered the truth. People did not laugh. People understood that I was learning. Most of them even smiled and tried to help me. That made me feel safe. One day at the cafe, a customer asked for a sandwich. I was busy and I accidentally said, "You can sit in the bread," instead of, "You can sit in the chair." The customer looked at me for a second, then started laughing kindly. I realized my mistake and laughed too. I quickly corrected myself and he said, "Your English is good." Don't worry. That moment taught me that even funny mistakes can become good memories. They do not close doors. They open them. They create connection. In class, our teacher reminded us, do not fear mistakes. Mistakes are proof that you are learning. Every mistake is like a small stone on the path. Step on it, and you move forward. I held on to those words. They gave me courage to keep speaking even when I was not sure. At home, I practiced even more. I stood in front of the mirror and had small conversations with myself. Hello, how are you? I am fine. What are you doing today? I am cooking. I am reading. I am learning. I spoke to my reflection as if it were my best friend. At first it felt strange, but soon it became fun. My voice sounded stronger. My smile grew bigger. I began to feel proud of myself. One evening I recorded my own voice on my phone. When I listened to it, I felt shy. My accent was heavy. Some words were not clear, but instead of feeling sad, I decided to see it as progress. That was my voice in English. That was my growth. I told myself, if I keep practicing tomorrow, my voice will sound even better. Listening to my own words gave me motivation. It made me realize that learning a language is not about being perfect today. It is about improving step by step. I started to notice small changes in my thinking. When I walk down the street, I sometimes describe things in English in my head. The sky is blue. The children are playing. The bus is coming. It was simple, but it showed me that my brain was beginning to use English naturally. This gave me so much happiness because I knew I was not just studying English anymore. I was living it. The more I practiced, the freer I felt. English was no longer something I feared. It was something I welcomed. It was not only a subject in school, it was a part of my daily life, my work, my thoughts, my conversations, and even my laughter. Every mistake, every small success, every simple sentence was building me into a new version of myself. Before going to bed that night, I opened my notebook and wrote one more line. Mistakes are my teachers. Every time I make one, I learn. Every time I learn, I grow. When I closed the notebook, I smiled. I felt that English was slowly becoming my friend, and with a friend, you never feel alone. Soon I began to notice something even more powerful. English was not only in my mind or on my tongue. It was starting to live in my emotions too. When I felt happy, I wanted to say it in English. When I felt tired, I whispered it in English. When I felt proud, the words came in English. Slowly, English was becoming more than a language. It was becoming a part of my heart. At the cafe one evening, a little boy came in with his mother. He looked at the cakes with big eyes and said, "Wow, yummy." I laughed because I understood him so clearly. I gave him a small piece of cake and he smiled at me. His mother said, "Thank you." I answered, "You're welcome." It was such a small exchange, but it warmed me deeply. In that moment, I realized that English was helping me share kindness with people I had never met before. It was not just about speaking, it was about connecting. In class, our teacher gave us another reminder. She said, "When you use English, do not only think with your brain. Speak with your feelings. Say things that are true for you. Say things that you believe. I held on to her words. That day, we had to talk about our hobbies. I stood up and said, I like reading books. Books make me feel alive. When I read, I forget my problems. I spoke slowly, but I spoke with my heart. My classmates clapped for me. I felt proud because I was not only using English words, I was sharing myself. At home, I tried something new. I began to write a short diary in English. The sentences were simple. Today, I worked at the cafe. I met kind people. I am happy. I feel strong. Writing these words felt like talking to a close friend. Every line gave me more confidence. Every page showed me that English could carry my feelings, not just facts. One evening, I put on my headphones and listened to a slow English song. I closed my eyes. I understood only some of the lyrics, but I felt the emotion of the voice. It touched me. It made me think that English is not only rules or lessons. English is also music. English is laughter. English is friendship. English is life. From that day, I stopped worrying about being perfect. I no longer cared if my sentences had mistakes. I only cared that I was speaking, listening, feeling, and connecting. I knew perfection would come later, but confidence could be mine today. And the more confident I felt, the more motivated I became. Before sleeping, I wrote in my notebook again. English is not only in my head, it is in my heart. When I feel it, I speak it. When I speak it, I grow. I looked at those words and smiled. I realized that English was no longer something outside of me. It was becoming a companion, a friend that walked with me through every moment of my life. The days continued to pass, and with each one, English became more natural in my life. It was no longer something I had to force. It was something that slowly started to happen by itself. When I woke up in the morning, the first words in my head were often in English. Sometimes it was as simple as I am hungry or today will be a good day. But those little sentences made me smile because I knew my brain was beginning to think differently. At work, English surrounded me. I greeted customers with more confidence. I asked them small questions. Some people answered in short words. Others spoke longer. But I listened carefully. Even when I did not understand everything, I understood enough to keep the conversation alive. Every small talk became practice. Every mistake became a chance to improve. My fear was gone. In its place was excitement, because every day I was learning something new. One afternoon, a group of tourists came into the cafe. They were loud, cheerful, and full of energy. They all ordered different things. At first, I felt nervous because they spoke quickly, but I breathed deeply and focused on the words I knew. I asked questions clearly. I repeated their orders, and I gave them their food with a smile. When they left, one of them said, "Thank you. You speak English very well." That sentence was like music to my ears. It made me believe even more in myself. At home, my routine grew stronger. After dinner, I opened a book or watched a short video in English. I did not see it as study anymore. I saw it as part of my life. Reading, listening, and speaking became like brushing my teeth or washing my face. It was just what I did. And because I enjoyed it, I wanted to keep doing it. I also kept writing in my diary, sometimes only 3 lines, sometimes more. Today I felt nervous, but I spoke. Today I understood a new word. Today I was proud of myself. These small sentences were like steps on a staircase. When I looked back, I could see how far I had already climbed. That gave me more energy to keep going. One evening I sat outside and watched the sunset. The sky was orange and pink. I whispered to myself in English, "This is beautiful." In that moment, I felt something magical. I was not translating from Spanish. I was not thinking about grammar. I was simply living in English, feeling in English, speaking in English. It was natural. It was real. Every day I understood more clearly that learning a language is not only about words, it is about building a new life inside you. A life where you can connect with people, share your feelings, and see the world in a new way. English was no longer my subject. It was my friend. It was my partner on the journey of life. That night I wrote in my notebook again, "English is part of me now. I do not study it. I live it. I breathe it. I enjoy it." When I closed the notebook, I smiled and felt grateful. I knew I was becoming the person I always wanted to be. Step by step, sentence by sentence, I was opening new doors to the world. As time passed, I began to see how English was not only changing my words, but also changing my opportunities. At the cafe, I started to notice that more people wanted to talk to me. Tourists asked me questions about the city, and I answered with confidence. Sometimes my sentences were short, but they were clear. And every time someone understood me, I felt proud. I was not the shy student anymore. I was someone who could help, someone who could connect. One evening, a man from England came in for coffee. He asked me, "How long have you been learning English for a second?" I froze, but then I answered, "Only a few months, but I practice every day." He smiled and said, "That's the secret. Practice every day. You will be fluent." His words stayed in my heart all night. They felt like a gift, a reminder that I was on the right path. In class, we began to do more group activities. We had to work together, tell stories, and share ideas. I noticed that I was speaking more without thinking too much. I did not wait for the perfect word. I just spoke. And even when I made mistakes, My classmates understood me. Sometimes they even repeated my sentence with the correct word. And I learned from them. It felt like we were all helping each other step by step, growing together. At home, English became part of my family life too. My younger brother asked me to teach him some words. We laughed as I showed him how to say good morning and thank you. Teaching him made me realize how much I had already learned. I was not only a student anymore, I was becoming someone who could share knowledge. That gave me even more motivation. I also started making friends in English. At football practice, I spoke more with the other students. We talked about the game, about food, about our countries. These were not deep conversations, but they were real. We laughed together, we shared stories, and we connected. Every time I walked home after practice, I felt lighter. English was giving me not only confidence, but also friendship. Slowly, I noticed how my world was changing. Before, I felt limited. I could only speak to people in my own language. Now I was opening doors to people from everywhere. It was like living in a small room and suddenly finding the key to a big house with many windows. I could see further. I could meet more people. I could dream bigger. One night before sleeping, I looked at my notebook. I read the sentences I had written over the past weeks. They told the story of my journey from fear to courage, from silence to speaking, from being alone to connecting. I added one more line that night. English gives me new chances. English gives me new friends. English gives me a new life. I closed the notebook with a smile, knowing that the journey was only beginning and the best was still ahead. Each day, English felt more like a habit, something that was simply part of my life. I no longer had to push myself the same way I did in the beginning. It was becoming natural, like drinking water, like walking, like breathing. When I woke up, I sometimes spoke a few words out loud before even getting out of bed. Today is a good day. I will learn more. I will speak more. Saying this gave me strength. It made me start the morning with hope. At the cafe, my conversations grew longer. I did not just ask what people wanted to order. I asked where they were from. I asked how long they were staying in the city. Some people told me short answers, but others told me little stories. I listened with care, and even if I did not understand every word, I kept the conversation alive. These small talks gave me joy. They made my work feel less like work and more like practice for my dreams. In class, I began to notice how different I was compared to the first week. Back then, I was shy. I was afraid to open my mouth. Now, I was often the first to answer, the first to ask, the first to share. My teacher noticed it too. One day, she said, "You have grown so much. Do you feel the change?" I nodded with a big smile. I felt the change not only in my English but in my heart. I was more confident, more open, more alive. At home, I made English part of every corner of my day. I spoke to myself when cooking, when cleaning, even when walking from one room to another. I put small labels on objects around the house. On the mirror, I wrote smile. On the fridge, I wrote food. On the door, I wrote go out. These little reminders made my home feel like an English world. Everywhere I looked, I saw words, and every time I read them, I repeated them softly, letting them live inside me. The more I practiced, the less I worried about mistakes. I understood that mistakes were not walls, they were doors, and every door I walked through gave me new strength. When people corrected me, I no longer felt ashamed. I felt thankful because it meant I was learning, and it meant I was closer to the English I wanted. One evening, I sat with my notebook again. I read the lines I had written before, each one filled with my journey. That night I wrote, "English is not something I wait for. English is something I do every day. It is my habit now. It is my life." When I closed the notebook, I felt a calm happiness inside. I knew that if I kept this habit alive, nothing could stop me. My English would grow just like a tree that receives water and sunlight every single day. When I looked in the mirror before going to bed, I said out loud, "I am proud of myself. I am learning. I am growing. I am speaking." I smiled at my reflection. I was no longer afraid. I was no longer the same person who only dreamed of speaking. I was now living that dream step by step, word by word, day by day. Slowly, my habit of using English every day began to change something inside me. I started to feel more confident, not only when I was alone, but also when I was with other people. I noticed that my fear of speaking was disappearing. The words came more easily now. I did not have to push myself so hard. They came like a small river that never stops moving. One day my teacher asked us to stand in front of the class and speak for 2 minutes about any topic we liked. At first, my hands felt cold. My heart beat fast. But then I remembered all the small victories I had collected. I remembered speaking to customers, speaking to tourists, speaking to myself in the mirror. I told myself, "You can do this. You have already been doing it every day." I stood up, took a deep breath, and began. I spoke about my family, about my work at the cafe, about why I wanted to learn English. My sentences were not perfect, but I spoke with feeling. I looked at my classmates, and I saw them smiling and nodding. That gave me even more courage. I spoke until the teacher said, "Time is up." When I sat down, the whole class clapped. I felt my chest fill with pride. That moment showed me that confidence grows when you take small steps again and again until they become something big. After class, I walked home with a smile that did not leave my face. I kept thinking. I spoke for 2 full minutes in English. It was something I never thought I could do before, but now it was real. That evening at the cafe, I spoke to customers with even more energy. I asked them questions, I joked a little, and I listened with patience. I was not only practicing English, I was enjoying it. At home, I looked at my notebook and wrote, "Confidence is not a gift. Confidence is something you build every day." I felt those words deep in my heart. Every sentence I had spoken in the past weeks had built this moment. Every mistake, every small practice, every brave try had created this new version of me. English was no longer just about communication. It was giving me courage in life. It was teaching me that if I can stand up and speak in a new language, then I can do anything. I can travel. I can make friends anywhere. I can follow my dreams. English was not only teaching me words, it was teaching me who I was becoming. Before sleeping, I whispered to myself in English, "I am confident. I can speak. I am not afraid," and I believed it. For the first time, I truly believed it. I knew my journey was still long, but I also knew I was walking with strong steps now, and nothing could stop me from reaching the future I wanted. The journey of English had already changed me so much, but I knew the best part was still ahead. Every day I discovered something new. I could talk to people I never thought I could talk to before. I could understand words that once felt impossible. I could share my thoughts and my feelings in another language, and that gave me so much joy. It was like the world had become bigger, and I was not standing outside anymore. I was inside it, part of it, living it. One evening, as I walked home from work, I thought about how different my life had become. In the past, I avoided speaking to strangers. I was afraid of making mistakes. Now I was the one starting conversations. I was the one smiling, asking questions, connecting with people. My heart felt free. I was no longer silent. My voice had grown, and English had given me the wings to use it. I realized that English is not only about grammar or vocabulary. It is about courage. It is about believing in yourself enough to open your mouth and let the words come out. It is about practicing every day, even when you feel tired, even when you feel shy. It is about choosing to try again and again until trying becomes living. That night, I opened my notebook for the last time. I looked at all the sentences I had written through this journey. They told the story of my growth, my fears, my victories, and my happiness. On the last page, I wrote one final line. English is not the end of my story. It is the beginning of a new life. I closed the notebook with a smile and felt peace inside me. And now I want to speak to you, my friend. Do not wait for tomorrow. Do not wait until you feel perfect. Start today. Speak today, even if it is only one word, even if it is only one sentence, it matters. Every small step will take you closer to your dream. Every small effort will make you stronger. You already have the power inside you. All you need is to begin. If this story gave you hope and motivation, then I invite you to join me on this journey. Like this video, share your biggest dream in the comments, and subscribe to this channel. Together we will not only learn English, together we will live in English, speak with courage, and grow into the people we want to be.